Well, g'day everybody, and welcome to the Marketing Theatre Show. This is Paul Adams, and I'm here once again with
Sheryl-Lee second.
yeah. So we're here to talk about all things marketing theatre, and we wanted to get a bit practical this week. So we're going to dig in a little bit into photos and talk about photos. So let's get started on that. And I notice actually we've synced up a bit today. We're both wearing black. Which,
the uniform.
Yeah, actually had a realization today how few shirts I have that are not either black or blue.
The light of the test.
Yeah. I was lining up in front of this wall and I went, I should probably find a different coloured shirt. I was wearing a blue shirt. And I went to my drawer and went, I should probably buy a different coloured shirt. They're all blue and black of some variation. So anyway, that's the way it goes. So welcome back. It's great to be here. Week 3. This is awesome. Really excited to be doing this. So where do we want to start with photos? Where do we want to start?
Oh, where can you start with photos? I think probably the understanding that your photos, as far as from a marketer's perspective, are the foundation of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you do, your visual image, because so much of what we do now is digitally based. Well, before that, it was print media. It might have been outdoor billboards, might have been any of that sort of thing. We have shifted, in such a great way to digital marketing. But your photos are still so very important, still a foundation. But there's some slight variations between photographs or the way you approach your visual brand for digital marketing to traditional marketing. Whether it be print or large scale. And the principle remains the same, the tactics change. And I think the basic understanding for it is that in traditional marketing, it might have been a street magazine or, anything like that. What you were looking for was what they called pickup value, which was if you were on the cover of a street magazine, you had to have a photograph on there that stopped people walking past and encouraged them to pick up the magazine. So it's pickup value. It has to be really, in a matter of fractions of a second, emotionally, engaging. What it does now, that pickup value remains the same, but it's scroll stopping value.
Yeah. So the theory hasn't changed at all, has it?
Nothing. The principle remains the same, but what we've got to remember is we're still designing for larger scale media. So you'll get on your computer, even on your laptop, and design this beautiful promotional photograph to brand your show with, and you're seeing it on a laptop sized screen, forgetting that people are going to be seeing it. Over 65% of people are going to be seeing it on a tiny little phone screen. That beautiful photo that looked amazing on your laptop loses all interest when it gets that small.
Are you talking about when you're adding kind of graphics and text and that sort of thing for a poster or a promotional image?
But also the photograph itself. When you think about the thousands and thousands of images that we scroll through in a day on our phones, you have to somehow come up with a photograph, the content of that photograph that stands out. So how do you do that? Well, is become familiar with everything that you see online is quite busy.
Yeah.
It's, if it's personal photographs, it's fancy backgrounds, or it's, a background outdoors. There's a lot going on in a lot of images online.
Yeah.
So I specialize in working with people with practically, no marketing budget, which is a lot of creatives.
Yeah.
So they have to start, if you're pouring a lot of, if you pour too much money into your marketing budget, if you're working as an independent, that's less money you can pay your artists. What I've discovered over the years is what can you strip away from traditional approaches to this sort of thing and still get big impact? And surprisingly, what I found is a completely plain, simple background with and really ramping up the emotional connectivity of the subject within the photograph, and how you shoot that makes all the difference. It also, one of the reasons that I promote a plain background, now you can add any special background you like to it, but as long as you're keeping in mind the fact of keeping in mind where you're marketing. So you can adjust the visual slightly if it's for print media or it's for a billboard. But if you are creating content for social media, you have to draw out the simplicity of everything.
Mm.
This also speaks to the fact that most people, when they go, I'm going to take, they get a fantastic photographer, they take some amazing shots, but then they realize once they've got these photos back, I now have to spend $100 an hour on a graphic designer to be able to etch or remove the background of these photos, or to create, get these photos in some sort of format where I can now create content on, my social media content for them and add graphics or text or whatever it is you need to do. They tend to forget that extra post-production stuff, which adds enormously to your cost. So if you've got the budget for it, do it. I'm not saying don't do it. If you've got that budget, then spend up on a great photographer.
But as you say, you can save a lot of time in the setup if you know that that's going to be something that's going to happen, that you're going to have to cut backgrounds out and that kind of thing, by simplifying that, by cleaning, making sure the background is nice and clean, getting some kind of light that's going to separate your subject from that background. That's going to help make that whole process easier, which saves your graphic designer time, which means that you're paying less in the long run.
That's exactly right. It's a lot easier for you to work with yourself. It's also, the plainer background does have a better impact on social media, on your phone, because it is so very different to everything else. It's clean. Clean is what stands out.
Yeah.
Simple.
I think when you were talking about that, I was thinking about different places online where I see really great examples of images that pop. And I think one of the places that you can really find some excellent examples of how to make something pop on a small scale is YouTube thumbnails. And I know that sounds crazy, but there are some really, really clever people out there doing some amazing work. For anybody that doesn't know, if you've got a YouTube channel, one of the things that helps get your video clicked and help increase the watch time and that kind of thing on your YouTube videos is the thumbnail, because that draws people in. And so there's a lot of research being done. There's a lot of theories around what makes a good thumbnail. But you see it yourself when you're scrolling through YouTube. There are some that have just got crazy. Like, some people don't have a thumbnail at all. It's just whatever YouTube algorithm has decided to capture as the screenshot that they'll post as the thumbnail. But ultimately, you want to design your own and upload it. And it is those ones that have got simple, great color that's popping, that's separating, bold text that's clear and easy to read. Because often you're reading it on that tiny little screen, so you want something that's going to pop. So, if anyone's looking for a place to go and look and see and get some inspiration, that's one place that is a multitude of opportunity to be inspired. So let's talk a little bit about how to prepare photos for all of those different places. So, what are all the different places we're going to use photos? We're going to use them on posters, on flyers, as you said, all the social media channels, which all have different shapes and sizes. So what do you...
Media.
And of course, print media, that still happens. I forget about that. So what's your recommendation in the approach to actually preparing for that photo shoot, knowing that you're going to try and get this amazing image that you will need to repurpose in all of these different locations, in all of these different sizes and shapes, some portrait, some landscape? How do you approach the preparation for that process to have what you need ready when you get to that post-production process? How would you approach the actual setup and the mindset in going to prepare for that photo shoot?
Well, if I go back to my actual design and research process, when I'm doing something like this for a client, for instance, don't reinvent the wheel. There are some fabulous, you've got the show, you've got to research or research the show. And when I say research, I have to research the show because I'm not doing it. So I have to understand what's the director's concept for the show. I have to at least read the show or have an understanding of the characters, a broad understanding of characters, and the theme, thematically, what's the show about, to allow me to develop a brand image that is going to represent it with integrity. So that's the first step. I have to understand the show. Then once I've got that, then I'm looking for, I'll just go onto Google and I will just use keywords, but I will search through images for anything that sparks my imagination to staging of characters. And I can find that inspiration in anything from fashion to sports, sometimes in theatre, but I tend to try and stay away from other theatres' promotional photos because it tends to be the same thing repeated over and over. And you know, unless it's, you know, spectacular staging or super simple, you want to do something a bit different if you can. So what I'm looking for is images that are not exactly what I want necessarily, but I'm taking away and capturing an image that I can then take into the photographic space to be able to show a photographer and the talent what it is I want them to do, rather than trying to explain it on the day for them to see what's in my head. So I'm building up a resource, and I might start off with, let's say we've got a play with 5 characters, depending on what the marketing team want as to whether they want if you've got a cast that small, it's great to be able to get a photograph of each of the characters in character or whatever you're doing there. But you don't need to have a photograph of everybody to market a show. It's not the family photo album. It's for a purpose.
Yes.
So, but what I find though is that I will go into the rehearsal, into the space with a plan, and I take a maximum of 8 photos because out of that, 4 to 6 will be usable. And that's not a reflection on the photographer. That's purely that what comes through the lens is sometimes entirely different to what you think it's going to look like. You'll also get inspired. The photographer will come up with some inspiration, and then things spontaneously happen with the talent on the day as well. You can't go into a photo shoot and say, we'll just wing it, because you will spend far too much time. You will not come out with what you needed for your marketing plan, which was, okay, in my strategy for this show, I need something definitely for the media. I need something because I've got a print program, a print media strategy. I have digital media strategy, and I'm going to do outdoor digital billboards, let's say. Okay, so I know what it is that I'm going to do. So I have to go in there with a plan. I go in there with my sample photographs for each character, and it might be, I don't know, footballer on a night out, just happens to be staged in the way that I want that character to be staged. That's the photo I go in with and explain it to them. And then I haven't got an actor going, I don't really know what you want me to do, or a photographer going, you know, I've got this great idea. If you go in there with a complete plan, you're not saying to the photographer, this is how you do your job. What you're saying is, this is what I need. How can you provide it for me? And then you step away and give them the freedom to be able to create a version, their idea. Moment. You're giving them artistic freedom, but you're still getting the plan.
Yeah, I love that. I've got to be honest, I've never thought about doing that and actually kind of taking that with me to the photographer. I mean, I might look at some photos and get a sense of the shape that I'm thinking that I might want from a directing point of view. But yeah, I think that's
the challenge is, how do you get that from your head to his?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So when you're looking at those inspiration photos, where are you looking for those? Are you looking for photos from real life moments, or, you know, I mean, I know you mentioned sort of looking at sort of, was it magazines or something? But so where
I just go straight to Google Images.
Yep.
And I'll type in keywords.
Based around the theme of what you're looking for.
Based around the theme of it. I'll start with the show. And I find that for me personally, I don't know, everyone's got a different process, but part of my process is what I end up with isn't what I necessarily thought I was going to go with. I find that the steps inspire the next step. And then something will pop, and then I'll be off, and everything else is quite simple once I've got that first little, you know, burst of inspiration and direction.
Yeah, love it.
But I know to go in and not pre-edit myself in my thinking, which means that I go in and I just save, I go through Google Images, do all that thing and get all that, you know, the inspiration, and I might save 20 or 30 different photographs to a folder, and then start whittling them down. And the reasons I will discard a particular photo or potential photograph staging will be practicalities. No, I haven't got the costuming, hair and makeup to be able to achieve that to the standard that it's going to come and work out. I don't think the talent that I've got is possibly going to be confident to do that, or, know how to do that, or, I don't have time for that. I've got time to do 8 shots. I can walk into, I'm usually working with people who, you're working with volunteers, whether they're being paid or not. They're still, they're not being paid usually to be at the photo shoot. So you don't want to waffle around with their time. So you go in there and you're prepared because you've done all this preparation with and for them before the day. You've also got a limited time with the photographer because they're being paid most likely.
Yeah.
So you get in there, all your prep time, they might be prep with, if you've got hair and makeup or whatever, might be 2 or 3 hours before that. But once you walk onto that set, I like to restrict it to an hour, 90 minutes tops. And I can get 8 good shots out of that, 6 that will be usable. So you've got to be in that time then, because you know what's in your head so well. It's like directing a play. You can see it. Because you can see it, you manage the shoot, you get things done, you keep the people on time, your photographer's happy, the company's happy, you end up with great selection of photographs, and you can do it again all over again next time. But being prepared, preparation is huge.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And I think it's something that a lot of us probably don't think about doing, and really, really kind of frame out the shape of what that image is going to look like. And I think, that really is going to save you money in the long run, because if you get a great image because you've put that time into the planning, well, it's just going to give you a better product to market your show with. And it's just going to save you a lot of time and money in the long term. So what's your approach on that shot? So you're looking for a particular shot. Are you looking for, like you're sort of talking about having 6 or 8 different shots that, is going to give you maybe 4 that you can use. Are you using one key shot for all platforms? Are you using a variety of those shots across different platforms? What's your approach on that?
You're talking about positioning or landscape portrait? In what respect?
Yeah, so from those 8 that you take, you're going to have 4, let's say, that are really usable. Are you choosing one to be the key image for the campaign, and you might use 1 or 2 of those as images in different situations, or is it just you pick that one key image and you're going with that, and you repurpose that in all the different ways you need to? What's your approach on that?
There are different approaches depending on where it's going. So having more than one hero shot, one branding shot is good with the media. I have found over the years that when I create a digital media pack for them, if I have one photo, fine, well and good. But I find that journalists really like when I can supply them with 4 great photographs, all prepared and profiled for them properly. Yep. In that digital media pack, there's 4 photos for them to choose from. So there's 2 reasons that they like to do that. Journalists now in newspapers, which are digital, we're talking, don't have the flexibility of design that they used to. So they have a 400-word limit on the text, and they don't necessarily have any flexibility on where a photo goes and whether it's landscape or portrait. So if I only supply them with a portrait photograph or just a landscape photograph, and they needed it in portrait for that restriction on the day, and they may not know it until the day, they can't use a photograph, or it's a real pain for them. Yeah. So I'm making their job as simple as possible. So if I've got 4 photographs, I'll supply all of those, as long as I'm happy and they're projecting my brand, in that digital media pack for the journalist to make the choice. I know that the photographs are all going to project the brand of the show. They get to make their choice. They're happy. When it comes to the rest of my marketing strategy, yes, it is ideal to come up with one hero shot. You don't necessarily know which one that's going to be. I have sometimes tested that with the media. When I send out that digital media pack early on, I remember one instance where I had the one shot that I really liked, that I thought would be great, that everyone would go for. And every single journalist chose the other photograph. And then when I took that photograph back and chopped it up, really, what I ended up doing was for production of Wicked. And the photograph that went out was almost a full body shot of Elphaba in costume. It was a magnificent shot. And the full body shot and full body, the full shot was, it was good. It was great. Spectacular costume was really good. But then when I took a second look at that photograph after, all these other people going, I'll take that. I cropped the photo right down to where I had half of her face into the shot, like the edge of the frame was here, void here. And I really drew it out, and it was right up into her. She was staring straight down the camera. It was half of her face. It was beautiful green. It was all a dark grey background, and through her blacks. And I thought, wow, that one ended up in digital boards, fronts of magazines. It was just an amazing photograph. And yet I didn't look, in those days, I didn't look at that the same way. So I've learned since then to don't take the photographs that come to you raw as finished, as in it was a full body shot, that's the way I've got to use it. No, you don't. You can draw it right out and get right up to a full face in the camera. See, that's the thing about promotional shots. You're connecting emotionally straight down the camera lens. So shots that really do work, when you're in doubt, just go for eyes straight down the camera and make that emotional attachment right there. And that's what was happening with this photo, with it right where just her face, which was beautiful, and the camera and the colors. She was straight down that lens, and boy, it was engaging.
Awesome.
So that was taking a photograph that I had in my mind one certain way and jigging it and changing it, almost changing it, the impact of it completely. And thinking a little differently about it, and that's the one that we went with. It was brilliant. So yeah, it's sometimes not what you're expecting.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's actually another really good idea to throw out there as well. And we talk all the time about testing things, even if you've got the benefit of being able to send it to media people and have them select it. But if for us as indie artists, if we taken a photo shoot and we're sort of debating about which one, there's a great opportunity to send it to a bunch of people that and say, what's your preference out of these two photos, and actually test it in the market so that you can get some feedback on which photo is going to be responded better to by other people. I think that's a great idea, and something that probably a lot of people don't think about doing.
Yeah, don't be afraid to do that within your strategy as well. If you've got 4 great shots, yes, emphasize or work mainly with one hero shot, but put the other ones out there. Don't be afraid to, you're not going to confuse anything. I mean, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, sure. But especially through social media, as you're introducing other characters or other elements of the story, and because you're storytelling in your marketing, you're not just advertising. Throw the other ones out there and let everyone enjoy those as well. Add some interest, especially depending on what's the length of your lead time.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think having that variety of options is important. We all know a big part of using social media is about regularity of posting. And so, I think you've spoken before a couple of times about banking photos for rehearsal shots and that sort of thing, so that, you might take 30 or 40 photos in a rehearsal period, in one rehearsal, for instance, but don't release them all in one go. You've then got potentially 15 or 20 days worth of images that you can release to help keep momentum growing around the show. So, yeah, I agree. If you've got a couple of great shots, and like you say, I think that's a really great idea as well that probably a lot of people don't do, is you can use the same shot, then repurpose that shot by trimming it, cropping it in different ways, zooming in and just having a face rather than the whole body. So you can use just one image in 2 or 3 different ways for different releases as well, which, again, another great idea.
And because you've created or designed the shoot and every photograph around a consistent theme.
Yeah.
They're all going to support the brand, support whatever you're putting out there. When it comes to actually staging the shots, I've got into the habit now. It used to be just, these are the characters in this shot. That's the stage that I want. I'd get 8 shots. That's it. Now I tend to work with the same photographers, so they're used to me now, but I tend to get first up the one that I planned to get. Then I will ask them to shoot them, give me a landscape shot with the talent to one side. So I have a lot of blank over here, which means that that's a quick one for me later on to then go and use on social media and be able to put anything on here. Portrait, landscape. And then I also, because, over time you develop confidence in knowing that what you're going to get is what you want. And so you give the photographer, if you've got your work so that you've got time throughout this whole thing to let them have their head for a few minutes and go and see what they come up with as well, beyond what you need, because that's always A, fun, and B, inspiring to watch, and you get some great stuff. Especially if you've got a photographer, don't be afraid. I get them to capture the behind the scenes too. So you got your talent who take a little bit of time to relax, and so there's a lot of giggling and having fun and doing all this sort of stuff. The photographer capturing just continuous shutter, just capturing all of that stuff, that is gold for social media.
Yeah, totally agree. And they are, for me, in my experience, been some of the photos that get the most engagement from people because they are so in the moment and so natural, and you're actually really seeing into the spirit of the person that's in that image. It's not the character shot. They're the ones that tend to really kind of get people in. There's just something about the spontaneity of that moment that really captures people. Yeah, love it.
Sort of highlights the different types of photographs you need too. So people tend to think that, well, I've got my promo shot, that's all I need. And it's quite surprising for many people to realize just how much photographic content they need to promote a show. You're sort of looking at, because you're storytelling and sharing the journey of the show, the journey of the creation of the project, the behind the scenes, the people involved. It's getting into the habit of capturing moments all the time, regardless of whether you use them straight away or not, is a priceless habit to get into as a marketer. That's little snippets of video, anything at all.
Yeah, document the process. I'm a big fan of that. I've got just gigabytes of video footage and photographs that we've taken in rehearsals, test days. Like we ran a free staged reading of the play. So it was just a play reading. The actors were on script, but we'd rehearsed a bunch of actions, and we did that as a free event when originally we had to cancel the first production of the show. So we filmed all of that. We filmed everything that happened that day, everything that, people coming in, behind the scenes, and I've just got gigabytes of video footage there ready to be reused and repurposed in different ways for when, we're sort of kicking things along. And particularly at the moment where we're not producing live theatre, starting to pull that stuff back out and repurpose it now as throwback kind of moments and that sort of thing. It's just gold, as you say. It's just so important. And, I might never, ever use all of it, but the fact that it's there gives me so many options to draw on and just keep that communication and that engagement with my audience going. It's gold is definitely, I think it's platinum maybe. It's just it's so important to have, Yeah, it's amazing. And some things that I think that people, and I just want to throw this out there is, again, we're coming back to that comment we made in one of the other episodes about, not needing to always be your own voice. I think one opportunity that some of us miss is the idea of, the actors, for instance, that have been in our shows have often been in other work, and we can use images of those people with permission, of course, in other shows, as part of our campaign to, build confidence in the skill that this actor is going to bring to the stage for you as an audience member. And I've seen that done a couple of times, and it always kind of stands out to me that in the middle of my show or the show that I'm about to go and watch, they're showing me some of the work that this actor's done, and it really does kind of make you go, oh, this is going to be good. I think it's something I don't see done often, but when I've done it and when I've seen it done, it tends to have a pretty good result. So
you're always building confidence and credibility with potential audiences, and that's a lot of what your photographic assets, your content does. That's why getting the best quality you can for your production photos is so key, because I have this wonderful Tumblr blog that I have followed for years, and I revisit it every now and then just to remind myself of how badly things can go. And it's an American blog, I think it's mainly community theatre. I occasionally see a bit of professional, but very rarely, but it's American community theatre promotional photos. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And I go on there and I go, oh my gosh, what were you thinking? But you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, you could so easily go down that rabbit hole or fall into those traps if you, are not careful. So you do see a lot of, saying I don't have the money for it is probably a bit of a cop-out for me now, because there are photographic clubs. There are plenty of good people, amateurs, who have a good handle on a camera and a good eye. It's your job as a marketer to find these people. And it's all about lighting and, a clean backdrop, get outside in the sun. It's just, there is too much on YouTube to learn. There's just too much information out there to say,
absolutely,
let's just, jump up here on the stage or in the rehearsal space. You stand in the corner, just wear whatever you're wearing, and we'll do these as our promo shots. And then, wonder why credibility and confidence doesn't come.
And if you don't have a DSLR, the quality of the camera on these things, when you get the right light, and by that I don't mean studio lighting. If you, as you said, go outside in a good spot that's, maybe well shaded but well lit on a day, you're going to get an amazing image out of these things. I mean, the camera work that what they're building into smartphones from a camera point of view is insane. And, for an indie production or an amateur production, I agree with you. There is no excuse to not have a good-looking photo, and it really does come down to some of those things about understanding good composition and understanding, as you said, having a good plan about knowing what it is that you're wanting to do. And I want to touch on a couple of those things, but you opened a door that I was going to go down as well. So I'll definitely get to that in a second. So let's start with talking about a couple of things that make a great photo. So I think the first thing that people don't do sometimes is they don't fill the frame. They get these shots that are too far away, there's too much space, and by the time you do bring it in and crop it in, you've actually lost a lot of the quality of that. So for me, 100% fill the frame, make sure you've done your planning so you know the type of image you're looking for, but fill that frame. Understand the rule of thirds. You mentioned before, Sheryl-Lee, about that idea of having somebody on this side of the frame and a lot of space so that you can not only use that for text. And talking about images, I'm gonna
straight.
Oh, that's not going to work. I'll deal with that later. I just sort of went, that's a bit wonky. But understand the rule of thirds and the impact that having somebody, on one side of a frame, dead center, other side, what that looks like, and play with those things so that you can get that dynamic moment in there. And again, like you said, lighting. And I think people overcomplicate lighting. They think they're going to need this full studio setup. But as you say, a good, well-lit day, and all you really need is something that's going to help bring the harshness of that light back. I mean, I've got a studio light in here at the moment with a diffuser in front of it just to soften it off. I mean, I'm still a bit glowy here, but, invest in a couple of simple things that will help change that. Like, you can pick up these little diffusers for $5-10 online. It's just ridiculous, the effect and the difference that they can make to a good photo. So what are some of the things that you've seen that make great photos? You talked before about having eye lines straight down the barrels. Is there any other things that you've seen that work really well?
I think this highlights for me as a marketer the difference between having a photographer lead your shoot and the marketer collaborate with the photographer. to lead the shoot. Because what I find is that I've worked with some amazing photographers, but it is all about the photograph, not how the photograph will be used. And rightly so. That's why you pay them the money, because they're spectacular at what they do. And again, I say that if you have the money for a photographer of, varying levels, there's, varying costs in Brisbane alone, that if you can pay for a professional photographer, do it. But I work with a lot of people who can't afford, huge fees. What I find is it's like an ad for an advertising agency where you come away from watching the ad and go, what did they just try and sell me? Because the ad was so spectacular, but it lost the purpose.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
It's really, you can keep things extremely simple. And I find that over the years I have got simpler, and the understanding of doing something simple extremely well has just as much impact for a marketer as a photograph that's going to win a photographic award. If that's what the photographer is doing, is taking a photograph to win a photography award, it's not necessarily serving your marketing purpose.
Yeah. Great
so
point.
that's it's a strong call to make, but it's the experiences I've had over the years that you have to be careful to collaborate, not hand over control.
Yeah, love it.
Because you know how these are going to be used. You also know your budget. So let's come at this from the point of view of little or no budget. You've got a really, really good, this is why I keep coming back to one of the simplest things, stripping away everything. You could do a million things with photographs, but how do you make that choice then? So you bring it right down simple. If you don't have the confidence to choose or to develop a photograph on set, and that takes experience and skill, that's fine. So go to what you know, and what I know works every single time is eye to camera.
Yep.
It is looking down that barrel. If you are in doubt, do that, because it on the social media, scrolling through, you see someone looking straight at you, it makes a difference. Once you get more confident, then throw some extra things in there, or throw caution on the wind, just do it anyway. Get your eyes to camera that you know is going to have some sort of impact, and then play. Don't be afraid to play with stuff. But again, going in there with samples that you can show the talent and the photographer that you want to try. That also allows the photographer to be inspired and say, okay, that's what you want. What if I did this? They also know how to stage people. So you might have two people standing very closely together. Having two people standing closely together on stage and staging them is different to how you would stage them on a screen.
Yeah.
So the photographer knows how to do that. He knows how to make the talent feel extremely awkward but look spectacular. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how, and I've been doing this for 10 years. I still don't. I know when to just, let them go. So I'm a simple girl. I have learned to keep things extremely simple because I have learned from experience that you don't have to get outrageously complex to make your marketing work with these photographs. And so I tend to, harp on that. Keep it simple, stupid. It really is.
Look, I think it's a great
way to go.
Yeah, definitely great way to go. And I think, you mentioned it before, there's so much noise on social media. Something that is simple can often be the thing that pops the most. So, but again, the more you try and add to it, the more complex you're making it for yourself and trying to actually execute it. I love that phrase that you used before about do something really simple, but very well. I think it's a great lesson to take away from it. So let's talk about the things that don't work, because I have seen some shockers in my day.
Some fun stuff. I do quite a lot of work with, let's take, for instance, if you're doing a period piece. So if you're doing a period play, musical set in a particular period, it's going to have hair and makeup requirements. Costuming is a little easier, but hair and makeup is, if you want to set photographically in that period, let's say the 20s is a really good example of it. If you want to do a period-based photograph, get the hair and makeup right. This is one of the, I have gone down two roads. When I've had a good hair and makeup team to work with, then they go all out and they go down the period road, and that's spectacular because the camera shows up what you can get away with on stage. So you could be a bit sloppy or not quite as detailed on stage and almost get away with it. You cannot get away with anything on a camera. It's right there. So if you aren't confident that you've got the hair and the makeup skills to create that period, then take the option, which I have taken before quite successfully, is don't do it. In fact, flip your marketing on its head. Don't follow. In other words, it's understanding the resources you have at hand and making them work. So if you've got the technical resources to do the period thing, then do it for sure. If you don't, then get creative and then go down the simple road of it's all about let the actor act, emote. So instead go super simple in costuming. It might be a single color that everyone wears. It might be their own hair and makeup. Definitely makeup on women. Just check makeup in general. Sometimes, it sort of depends on what you want to achieve. But go super simple and clinical in some respect and create an emotion in the photo rather than, again, going back to whatever the theme was. If it's a drama, then that's pretty simple. If it's comedic photos are actually, or, marketing comedy is actually quite a bit more difficult than a drama photographically. Can so easily go wrong. But yeah, get creative and do something simple. That for me is where I have seen it go so wrong. Putting too many people in a photograph.
Yes.
And if you're doing more than one person, two people's fine. 1, 2, and 3s are fine. Anything beyond that, if you must have more than that in there, always go odds.
Yeah,
it's a staging thing.
I agree.
But group photos don't tend to work well for the media unless there's something about them that unless they're really well staged.
I was going to say that
there's just too much going on.
It's got to be really well staged. I mean,
really well staged, and it's much harder.
Yeah, it's tough. The ones that always kill me are the ones that people think they can just take a photo while people are performing a scene and use that, and it's no.
Don't stage
so
scenes.
bad.
Yeah.
Because I think you what you mentioned before is where people fall down is they think, this will look great on stage, but the lines and the angles are so different when you put it onto a screen, and you really need to think about that. And a lot of stage directors, a lot of stage actors that don't have a depth of anything in film just don't get it, and they don't see it, and they just miss it, and it's there's some shockers.
It's hard to understand, but you're not marketing the show as much as you are the theme or emotion of the show. That's why that research pre-production is so important, for you to understand what is this show really, what's the ultimate theme of this, and that's what you're projecting onto the camera, not a recreation of the show, the lines, nothing, not even the characters.
That's it. It's catching those moments. And I would do the same thing in rehearsals if I'm directing a show, and just during rehearsals, if I've got nobody else there to take some photos, I'll either grab my camera or my phone, whatever I've got handy, and rather than just stand out from a director's eye and take photos, I will let them play the scene, and I actually get in and do over the shoulder shots of actors while they're performing a scene to cut that distance and shape it like it would be a film shoot, so that I can actually get shots that look good as rehearsal shots, So, it's something, it's just so crucial. It makes such a difference. And if I'm doing video in rehearsals, I'll try and really get in close to the actors' faces. And, you obviously tell them you're going to do it, but having those little really close-up, zoomed-in shots of, just getting right in front of them from a promotional point of view, sharing that stuff, it's just so much more dynamic. Yeah, it makes such a difference.
Because otherwise you've just got a group of people standing in a room.
Yeah.
Which when you're rehearsing, you go, oh, this will be really good. But then you see it on camera and you go, there's nothing happening, So, which, distance shots are fine a little bit, but you're right.
All in black against black walls.
Yeah.
And This is an amazing shot.
Yeah, that's right. Come see it. This looks amazing. But yeah, so I've been fortunate to work with. This comes down to the subject of rehearsal photographs, the value of those. And people go, "Oh, I don't want people to see the show." Well, they're not going to see the show. They're going to see the people in the room. So like you just said, you get in there close and you take a shot during the rehearsal, but what you're capturing is the face, the emotion, the journey,
that moment.
The character.
Yeah.
That's right. So you shouldn't be afraid to do it. What I find really helpful is to have, I work a lot with volunteer organisations, and I find it really useful for them to have a variety or more than one rehearsal photographer. Because I'll have the promotional photographer will be usually a professional or a really good amateur.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They might also have the skill to take performance shots, but that's a very different skill again.
Yeah.
Also a different camera. But rehearsal shots, behind the scenes stuff, they're different styles of capturing storytelling. What I find with photographers is they see the story through the lens uniquely to themselves. So you could have 3 different people standing in a rehearsal hall with great cameras, some getting, with lenses that can get them in close. And I tend to sort of not have as much freedom as you just described there, which sounded wonderful, to be able to get in close. My photographers generally can't impede on a rehearsal, so they've got to have the lenses to be able to do that. But I'll put 3 of them in a room and they'll all come back with great shots, but from a very different perspective.
Yeah,
not
that's
just
a great
positioning
idea
in the space, but the way they see the story through the lens, the way they tell the story photographically, which I find invaluable. Because they'll bring me 100 photographs after a couple of hours.
Amazing.
And apart from I've got an amazing resource, 3 different stories, which and when I use those, I don't have to just put them up and say, here's a rehearsal. I can have a story going on there and tell a story unique to that photograph, made up or otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that really opens up the opportunity too. We talked about once before really focusing in on the different types of target markets that your show might appeal to. And if you've got 3 different photographers seeing the show in 3 different ways, then you can almost tell that marketing story in 3 different ways and appeal to 3 different target markets. That might help grow that and bring those people in. I mean, that's a great idea.
There's a ton of people, good amateur photographers, who would love the opportunity to be able to take photographs in such a unique setting. Now, obviously, when you bring them in, you have a discussion with them about the etiquette of being in a theatre and not involving themselves in the rehearsal and the privacy, the various things that administratively you would have to do. But amateurs who would love to be in that setting, camera clubs, all sorts of things. You just have to put a word out and you set yourself up. I'm probably getting a little organisational nerd here, but I prefer supplying them with an suitable SD card so I can take it back. So I have control over where those photographs go.
Smart.
I've also got, when I'm working with talent or setting this up with a company, there's a media release for all talent that are involved. It's a very simple media release that, the usual thing. But yeah, there's just a ton. There really are. I can put I did recently, I've got a little project that I run on the side called Stay Classy, which is purely just a social photographs. I send a photographer along to theatre events, opening nights usually. They take social photographs of your audience in the foyer. They're branded of your company and your show, and I post them on the Stay Classy Theatre Facebook page and share them there. And what that does is purely just expanding your audience and generating interest. It's become a bit of a thing. But I put out a call out at the end of last year, beginning of this year, just before COVID, looking for more photographers because I was getting so many requests, and people came out of the woodwork. People I didn't know, people who were not involved in the theatre world, photographers who wanted to expand, their experience. There's just so many options out there for you.
Brilliant.
And to take advantage of them. And as you said before, the phones, fantastic. When you just want someone who wants to go behind the scenes, not taking photographs of the rehearsal, but going behind and having a chat with, cast members, and don't forget your techies, all your creatives behind the scenes, your costumers and all of those.
So important.
Doing it on your phone, capturing snippets of video and anything that you can, build in. You could have a small army of content gatherers that supply you with, material that you can do so much with, and you have not been the little chook running around trying to gather all this stuff with everything else that you have to do as a marketer.
Yeah,
so
that's brilliant.
Team, I think.
Well, yeah, and as you say, there are clubs of people out there that want to have a go at doing that, and it really is just about putting a bit of legwork into finding them, and you'll boost your marketing capability tenfold if you actually put that little bit of effort in. That's incredible. It's a great idea. Great. Well, that's a pretty comprehensive rundown on some photos, I think. Let's wrap it up there. What final thought would you like to leave people with today around photos?
Keep it simple, but be brave and experiment once you're in there. Get what you need and then experiment. Collaborate with your photographer.
Yep. Love it. I think the big takeaway from me, really, for anyone is that planning process of really thinking through staging that and working with the photographer I love that idea of having a few sample shots of life that represent the sort of idea that you want. I think that's a genius idea. I've never done that before. Trying to explain it verbally sometimes gets a bit hard. So
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe I never thought of doing that myself. So that's a great idea. So I love it.
I learned that one the hard way.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you once again for joining us, and hope you got some value out of that episode of Marketing Theatre, and we shall see you on the next one. Bye for now.